Do me a favor, everybody. Give the video a like, a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, Burn It Down with Kim Brown right here on YouTube. You can find us at BIDWKB around the internet, Instagram, Twitch, at Burn It Down KB on Twitter. So the pro-Palestine protests at Columbia University came to a head this week as students set up an encampment on the Columbia University campus, in which from DC, the president of Columbia University basically shut down the protest, sicking the NYPD loose on hundreds, if not thousands, of students, not just from Columbia University, but some of the other surrounding universities, including Barnard College as well. And I want us to take a look at some clips straight from Status Quo News. Shout out to Jordan Sheraton and the whole Status Quo community over there, because the Status Quo was on the scene, everybody. And I want us to take a look at some of the protest scenes and a trigger warning and content warning for police violence, because as you may have heard, over 100 students were arrested and charged by NYPD in connection with the clearing of this protest encampment, in which students were given a very limited time to collect their belongings and be dispersed from the premises. And they were being threatened with administrative actions as well. So I want us to take a look and really get a good idea of what was happening on the ground there on the campus of Columbia University in New York City, as pro-Palestinian protesters continued their push to get Columbia to completely divest all of its interests from Zionist Israel. So let's take a look at that.
Have you been? You're brainwashed, my friend. You're brainwashed.
I'm not brainwashed.
That's
genocide. Not
the best.
If you shoot a hero from Britain, it's not accident. I did ask. Look for a video yourself.
I feel bad for you, but you're brainwashed.
No, you're brainwashed. You think that it's you brainwashed by Nazi.
What? I've been there. I've seen it.
You've been to Gaza. You've been to Gaza. You've been to Gaza. Have you been to Gaza? Have you been to Gaza?
Yes, I've been on the Gaza border. Yes.
Yes, Gaza border. Gaza.
I protected myself, and I have all the right to protect myself.
Have you been to Rafah? Have you been to?
I feel bad for you. You're brainwashed.
I feel bad for you because you're brainwashed. I know exactly what's happening.
Thank you.
I know exactly what's happening.
Yes? By what?
Everybody knows.
How?
Everybody.
How?
I've seen the evidence.
You've seen what?
It's
Show me evidence.
Show my modern technology.
Okay.
The first genocide ever that's alive for everybody to see.
Yeah?
The first genocide ever.
I've seen the Holocaust videos. Have you?
Yes, I did.
And that's not a genocide?
My grandparents were both everywhere family war in the Holocaust, and that's why I'm here because
Thank you.
There is a Holocaust.
I feel bad.
There is a Holocaust happening right now. There is a Holocaust happening.
It's very
right
bad
now.
what's happening. Very bad.
It's a Holocaust.
It's very
a
bad.
Holocaust. And it's
And Hamas is to blame. But it's very bad.
No,
It
you
should
cannot
end.
blame Hamas.
Wall by wall.
Zionism will fall. Brick by brick. Brick by brick. Wall by wall. Zionism will fall.
From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
Palestine will be free.
From the river to the sea,
From the river to the sea.
Palestine will be free.
Palestine will be free.
From the sea to the river,
From the sea to the river.
Palestine will live forever.
Palestine will live forever.
What the fuck are you doing? Why are you doing this to me?
Free Palestine.
I'm just standing here. Why are you doing this to me? What are you doing? For what reason? I'm just standing on the sidewalk. What the hell? What's wrong with you? What the fuck is the reason? Why are you doing this to me? I was literally just standing here.
You can record this.
What the fuck are you doing?
Untense yourself. Untense yourself.
I'm stuck. You're not. Let me get my. God damn it, you're so goddamn You stop! You stop! You stop!
Door stop.
Stop yourself! What are you doing?
Come on, let's go.
Get him off the fucking ground!
No, what the fuck are you doing? You got fucking touch her! You got fucking touch her! Ground is not that hard.
Incredible scenes there from the streets of New York, in and around Columbia University, all of that captured by Status Quo News. I encourage you, please go subscribe and follow Status Quo News. Jordan and them be on top of the things, and they cover it from an amazing perspective. In fact, there's one clip posted on the Status Quo Twitter timeline. I keep saying Twitter because I will forever dead name Twitter. I'm not saying, never calling that shit X. On Twitter at Status Quo, there's a clip of actually one of Jordan's camera guys getting hemmed up, and one of his reporters getting hemmed up by the police momentarily, and then they were able to move around. Can I just say something really quick about the first clip of the montage where you see the two people in the street having an argument, and that is captioned as anti-Zionist and Zionist Jewish folks having a debate in the street. And just as a reminder, like, every person who follows Judaism does not support what Israel is doing to the Palestinians. And that is very stark. That made itself very plain in that first clip. In fact, the Orthodox Jewish rabbis, we've seen these clips here on this platform before also, the Orthodox Jewish rabbis are not with this, okay? And they say it's all in the scripture. That the Jewish people will not have a homeland. Again, I'm not the one to parse that. Go follow the yarmulke dudes with the long beards. Listen to them. Go believe them. Don't believe me by any stretch of the imagination. But anyway, when the Zionist guy was arguing, have you seen images of the Holocaust? And the anti-Zionist guy was saying we are in a Holocaust right now. I'm listening to the book, The New Age of Empire by Dr. Kehinde Andrews, who I'm a big fan of, by the way, y'all. Y'all know who Kehinde Andrews is. He's the British bruv who loves to go on UK morning television and hurt all of white England's feelings over their coffee by telling them, yes, England is racist. I love Dr. Andrews. I love him. So anyway, I'm listening to his book, The New Age of Empire, and he talks about how the use of genocide has been weaponized by Europeans, because after Europeans genocided other Europeans, then that is like the standard, right? That is the Western standard. Like, it doesn't get more worse than when Europeans genocided each other. However, other known genocides usually committed by Europeans around the world do not get acknowledged as such. It's not regarded as a genocide when the Germans murdered hundreds of thousands in Namibia. It's not genocide when 10 million in the Congo were slaughtered by the Belgium. It's not a genocide when hundreds of millions in the Americas were decimated by the Spanish, the Portuguese, the English, the French. Like, that's not genocide. I don't know what's that, bad luck. I don't know what that is. But when Europeans get genocided in Europe by other Europeans, oh, that's the highest standard of standards. And not to say that what happened to the Jewish people is not absolutely atrocious, but it is not the end all be all, or by any means the worst or even most numerous genocide that we have seen throughout human history. So I just wanted to make that point. So getting back to what is happening here at Columbia University. So where shall we begin? Because we saw some of the actions, at least in part, they're happening on the streets. And on Capitol Hill, what was happening with the performance by Columbia University's president? Okay. She's a brown woman, and I did not Google to see the origin of her brownness. but she is absolutely playing the role that I guess the talented 10th, the so-called talented 10th in every so-called minority group, gets elevated to be the non-white face of colonialism or of empire. This lady seems to be filling that role as well. And we've seen a lot of the clips of the Columbia president. We even showed it some, I think, on the Remix Morning Show Thursday, when they aired a portion of her testimony and her very tough talk in response to, I think, some questions being asked by New York Congresswoman Stefanik, right, who represents upstate New York, right, and I do believe is a pro-Zionist herself. So hold on, where am I looking here? Which one are we doing right here? So let's take a look at this here clip. This one. Let us actually, Will, just go ahead and play the next clip. I'm sorry, I didn't do the best of job doing that. So play that next clip. I'm sorry, because I can't even really tell which one this is. It's the one before the Ilhan Omar clip. Or should I just go ahead and play the Ilhan Omar clip? Let's go ahead and play the Ilhan Omar clip. Well, let me stick with this particular train of thought, because I will derail myself on occasion every time. So anyway, the clips, like I said, that have been widely circulated are the ones of, I believe, Congresswoman Elise Stefanik giving tough line of questioning to Columbia University's president. But I did not see this exchange with Congresswoman Ilhan Omar and the Colombian president. And I appreciate the Colombian president of Columbia University. And what I appreciate here from Congresswoman Omar, even though, consistency would be nice on a variety of things, but regardless, when all the claims of anti-Semitism on college campuses come up, they usually are just left at that. Campuses are seeing a rise in anti-Semitism, but no one says what that is, right? People getting hit in the head. Like, I need further clarity on the types of anti-Semitic incidents. And I'm not saying there are none. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying I sometimes it lacks specificity when I hear it. You understand? So anyway, Ilhan Omar presented Columbia University's president with a line of questioning in that direction. And I appreciated that, because I don't usually hear it. So listen to what the president of Columbia University had to say when confronted about, not only anti-Semitic attacks or a rise in not so-called, but a so-called rise in anti-Semitism on campus. She also asked her, well, are other students of other backgrounds experiencing similar types of harassment? You guys should check out the answer. Let's listen.
Colleagues asked you, have you seen anti-Muslim protests on campus?
I have seen, we have had pro-Israeli demonstrations on campus.
No.
But
just
not
a protest that was against Muslims.
No, I have
you
not
seen one against Arabs?
No, I have not.
Have you seen one against Palestinians?
No, I have not.
Have you seen one against Jewish people? Have you seen a protest saying we are against Jewish people?
No, I have seen.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. There has been a rise in targeting and harassment against anti-war protesters because it's been pro-war and anti-war protesters is what it seems like, correct?
Correct. There has
Okay,
been.
thank you. Activists on campus, including Jewish students, Black and Brown, Arab and Muslim students. How many of the organizations that were canceled in Colombia involved Jewish students?
One of the organizations is called Jewish Voices for Peace.
Yes. And encompassed of Jewish students?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. There was there's been a recent attack on the democratic rights of students across the country. I was appalled to learn that in April, Colombia suspended and evicted 6 students for their involvement in the pro-Palestinian panel event on campus. It happened that all 6 students were arbitrarily targeted after the university brought in a team of private and former police investigators. These investigators harassed, intimidated Palestinian students at their homes, demanding to see students' private text messages and sent threatening emails to the leaders of those pro-Palestinian groups. I would like to ask you to speak a little bit more to this situation and ask you if you guys have utilized private former police investigators before, or is this the first time?
So this was a very serious case. We had students who, on an online
If you could
call,
shorten your answer, that would be really appreciated.
of course, who invited people who were inciting violence, and that is unacceptable. And so we needed to get to the bottom of it, and so that's why we brought private investigators along with notifying
How
the
secure
FBI.
were you these students that you evicted and suspended were involved? Did you do any investigation? Was there a hearing?
They refused to cooperate with the investigation, and so until they do so, they are suspended.
Okay, thank you. And then in January, there was an incident involving students that were protesting that were attacked with a toxic chemical substance, leaving many hospitalized. A lot of them did not receive support from the school administrators. Can you speak to what is happening with the investigation, if you all are cooperating, and why weren't the students provided any support after they've experienced that attack?
So this is still with the police, and as far as we know, we think it was an odorous substance, and we did reach out to all of those students who said they were affected. Many of them didn't want support. We also
It took you guys more than 4 days to reach out to students.
No, I don't believe that's correct.
Okay, will you
actually.
respond, give me a written response with the fact that you all responded right away to those students?
Yes, I would be happy to do that.
All right, appreciate that. And it looks like there's been a lot of doxing and harassment that has taken place. What protections are a student being provided?
We created a doxing resources group to support students. There were many students who were affected by this. Muslim students, Jewish students, and completely, other students. That group we had 90 students reach out to that group to get support in terms of both technical support, legal support, privacy scrubbing, and so on.
And before I run out of time, I wanted to ask what do your rules say about professors that harass students online, like Professor Shai Davidar has done, and professors who directly attack you as the president as a coward and a liar?
So, as president, I'm used to being attacked, but attacking our students is unacceptable. And in that case, we've had more than 50 complaints about that professor, and he is currently under investigation for harassment and
I would love a
discrimination.
follow-up on that as well. Thank you so much.
That was an interesting exchange, was it not? A little bit more revealing, I think, than all the clips that I keep wanting to call this lady Gwen Stefani. It's Elise Stefanik. I guess she could be Gwen Stefani, right? Like, what's the difference? The incident that happened that the congresswoman asked the president there about, the skunk attack incident, not really widely covered by mainstream press. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, stay tuned. I'm gonna get to that in a couple minutes. I want to come back to it because it's extremely consequential that potentially agents from a foreign state was allowed to spray a chemical irritant onto students at an American university in America, and then nobody do shit. Like, nobody's in trouble behind this. What? Oh yeah, that shit was crazy. But hold on. If you thought the Columbia University president was getting off easy, if you thought maybe she got off a little easy, shout out to the radical whites and non-whites at Code Pink. Big up to Medea Benjamin and her band of about it white women who have no problem asserting their whiteness as necessary, going into the spaces, getting in people's shit, getting arrested, getting out of jail. You better come through, radical whites, with your bond money. Look at that. That's what the but again, that's what the fuck y'all supposed to be doing. So big up to Medea Benjamin, Code Pink, and all the activists who showed up on Capitol Hill, some students of Columbia University. And the students, this clip that we're about to see, you're about to hear about people who showed up to that hearing room, to that House hearing room on anti-Semitism, in which the Columbia University president just testified. Students and other activists showed up on time, early, hoping to get a seat into the committee, and they were denied. But listen to the questions that activists hit Columbia University's president with. Is her last name Shahid? I'm not gonna mess up nobody's name, okay? I'm gonna call that lady the Columbia University president because. So anyway, watch this clip, you guys. They hit her with some amazing questions as she was leaving the House committee room after giving that testimony. Check it out.
Survived a terrorist attack using chemical weapons on your campus? Do you have any word for the survivors of a terrorist attack on your campus?
How does it feel to be in a room that did not allow for Palestinian solidarity students to be here? This was a public hearing and you did not allow for the public to come in? Shame on you. Being pro-Palestinian is not anti-Semitic.
We're outside the office here of the chairwoman of the Committee on Education that was hosting the hearing today with the Columbia University president. And I was here at 8 o'clock this morning. There were students online. They were the first students on the line. They were not allowed inside.
Here's the thing, they let in Jewish students who are pro-Israel through a back door, but not the pro-Palestinian Jewish students. So I talked with some of them, and the message they seem to have gotten that was sent from the committee is that the committee feels that there's a right and wrong kind of Jew, and those that are left out in the hallway are the wrong kind of Jewish students.
Virginia, given that there's an active case against Israel for genocide in the International Court of Justice, do you think it's a good idea to be wearing a pin supporting that country?
It's crazy, guys, because there's going to be a point in the hopefully near future in which all of these people in positions of leadership are going to be asked, or their legacies are going to be deeply called into question. Because once all the official, and again, from what we have observed, even from here in the West, about what's happening in Palestine, once it is all the way unearthed, the levels of atrocities that the Palestinians endured at the hands of the Israelis and the Americans, whew, I'm telling you, people are going to have a hard time reconciling their support of Israel at this time to their grandchildren, right? Or to their kids or to their grandkids. They're going to be like, what the fuck? You knew that Israel was doing this to hospitals, to children, to women? and you rocking the Israeli flag. And to be clear, everybody, so certain instances of so-called anti-Semitism, I know don't qualify. And one of those instances of protest absolutely includes stomping on the Israeli flag, right? That does not mean that you hate Jewish people. I would stomp and burn on the fucking American flag right goddamn now. And I still love, unfortunately, some Americans, right? I don't mean I hate Americans. I cannot stand the settler colony state of America, which is exactly what Israel is. To stomp on the Israeli flag does not mean that you hate Jewish people. It means that you hate the repressive state and imperialist policies that the state of Israel enacts, not only against Palestinian, but violating the sovereign borders of all of its fucking neighbors. I mean, Israel is not a nice neighbor out there in the Middle East. They do all kinds of antagonistic shit. It's like, dog, you got to stop that shit, man. You better cut it the fuck out. So, anyways, I want us to keep circling back to Colombia because I'm fascinated by this. And again, so some people would look at these Columbia students and be like, well, why, these snot-nosed little brat elitists, and get with their fancy Ivy League or just below the Ivy League education. Who cares? You know what I'm saying? And by the way, Ilhan Omar's 21-year-old daughter was among the 100 plus students arrested at the pro-Palestinian protests. And I think she is even under some sort of punishment. Like her school, she's a student at Barnard College, and they mad. they mad at her. I even think they might be threatening to perhaps expel or put out Ilhan Omar's daughter from Barnard College because of her protest activities. So there is that. So anyway, hold on. Let me get back to my doc here and figure the next place that we're going, because all of this it's historical, right? Because it was college students during the anti-war movement of the 60s and 70s that were really putting the press on their administrations for their support, for their heightened militarism and all this over the top patriotism in support of Vietnam, pardon me, in support of the Vietnam War, definitely not in support of the Vietnamese people. And the repression that happened then of students' First Amendment activities, how students, college students, white college students found themselves at the barrel of guns also, along with Black liberation freedom fighters. You know what I'm saying? They killed Bobby Seals, not Bobby Seals, pardon me. Fred Hampton, my gosh, my apologies. They killed Fred Hampton, 2 years before they killed the students at Kent State University, the National Guard did. So the anti-war movement, the pro-Palestinian movement might as well be called an arm of the anti-war movement, because that is the calls for ceasefire, that is the calls for a retreat from the imperialism that Israel is exerting on Palestinians. So hold on, so I want us to check out these two clips from TikTok, and they're going to explain a couple of things, okay? So one of them is going to give a recap of this week's events at Columbia, right? And put them in the historical context of the anti-war movement that happened on Columbia's campus in 1968, where students were actually taking over taking over the whole fucking building, out there really fighting with NYPD, right? Getting all that. And the other clip is also going to give a little bit more context to that chemical attack against pro-Palestinian students on Columbia University's campus earlier this year, several months ago. The attackers are alleged or thought to be IOF agents, Israeli, occupational forces agents, whom we know that there is a lot of cross training between the NYPD and Israeli police and IDF forces. So it's not like foreign agents of Israel wouldn't be welcome in New York to be deployed against leftist activists, right? It's not like that. Doesn't sound far-fetched to me at all. So anyway, let's let these two white sisters not brighten. Well, on some level, I guess they will brighten, but sort of enlighten us on a bit of this history and a bit of this most recent. Well, I'm not sure if they're both white. Maybe neither one of them. I'm having a hard time telling my whites these days, y'all. It's been a challenge. I'd be like, oh, that's what Alicia, our dearest, my niece Alicia. When Alicia came on and told us she was white, that was news to me. I always thought Alicia was off-white. I don't know why I thought Alicia was like Puerto Rican or some variation of light-skinned Arab. Alicia, I didn't know you was white until you told me, baby. So I can't even tell my whites no more. I'm down bad. Anyway, these women of unknown ethnicity are about to school us and hip us to a bunch of shit relevant to Columbia University and the recent active pro-Palestinian movement. Let's take a listen.
Has suspended 6 students for protesting against the genocide in Palestine with no due process. So let's take a look at Columbia and Barnard's 6-month attack on students protesting against the genocide in Palestine. Since October 7, 2023, Free Palestine protesters have received doxing from Zionist students and external Zionist groups, including doxing trucks. And on November 10th, the universities banned Jewish Voice for Peace and Students for Justice in Palestine, which occurred a day after the groups participated in a Shut It Down for Palestine walkout. This resulted in protests from the greater New York City community. A denouncing graduation ceremony from previous alumni, and now a lawsuit from NYCLU to Columbia for the suspension of the chapter. But somehow it gets much worse than even this. At the start of the current semester on January 19th, 2024, dozens of students reported that 2 former IOF soldiers sprayed skunk, an illegal chemical weapon used for crowd control by the Israeli offensive forces, on the student protesters at Columbia and Barnard. And despite it gaining mass attention on social media, 10 students being hospitalized with dozens more having to seek urgent medical care, continuous outrage in demonstrations from Free Palestine Columbia students, no one was held accountable. So SJP and JVP organized an action with 83 other community organizations to protest the ongoing genocide in Palestine and the repression of the pro-Palestinian movement on the student campus. The skunk attack that occurred on January 19th. The NYPD, New York Police Department, responded by working with the university to brutally assault pro-Palestinian Columbia students and their supporters for this nonviolent action directly outside the gates of Columbia, which included dislocating someone's arm, body slamming individuals on the ground, punching people in the stomach, and arresting 12. The NYPD has continuously used surveillance drones at these student-led protests. It's important to note that these drones are not only at actions, which include the greater New York City community supporting student protesters. Even when the gates are locked and it's just student protesters, the NYPD used their drones to fly over the gates to surveil the student protesters. Yeah, even with this surveillance and at least 17 security cameras of where the skunk chemical attack happened, the NYPD has put it on student protesters to come up with footage of the skunk chemical attack that occurred on January 19th. The NYPD's selective surveillance mirrors university surveillance, who they work with to criminalize student protesters. As the university has surveilled student emails, social media, sent emails of discipline notices to student protesters, has sent emails to organizations warning them that public political events on campus are being reported to law enforcement, and further announced that it would be using Wi-Fi networks to surveil student protesters against the genocide. But it does not end there. In response to Free Palestine decorations on dorm room doors, Barnard banning it, and a student at Barnard was asked to take off her hijab at a security checkpoint. Students have to deal with harassment from on-faculty university professors like Shai Zaibidai, who harasses student protesters both on Twitter and in real life.
Columbia once again showed its true colors through one of the most violent acts.
But it still does not end there.
Columbia suspended myself and 6 other students with no due process in violation of their own rules and disciplinary procedures. This happened after they sent private investigators who are ex-cops to bang on our doors and demand interrogations without lawyers present. Shame on Columbia. Not only did Columbia suspend us without providing any evidence against us, they also did not allow for a hearing before unilateral suspension of 6 high-risk students. We have now been told that we will be evicted from our housing in less than 4 hours.
The Students in Justice of Palestine Columbia chapter made a statement saying, "These suspensions are a part of a coordinated campaign to boost Columbia's public image ahead of the April 17th Congressional hearing on anti-Semitism, where President Manu Shafiq and 3 trustees will testify before Congress. Both the president of Harvard and Pennsylvania University were forced to resign shortly after their hearing." So what can you do to support these student protesters? Take action and send an email to Columbia demanding them to revoke the student suspensions. Follow these student organizers' pages and keep supporting their resistance and their demands. And most importantly, keep talking about Palestine.
We're back at the airport to talk about what happened at Columbia University this week. 2 days ago, the president of Columbia was called into Congress for a hearing on if the campus had become too anti-Semitic. The hearings are led by pro-Israel Republicans, namely Rep. Elise Stefanik, who is a representative from upstate New York but does not represent Columbia University's district. Pro-Palestinian protests have been taking place since October on Columbia's campus. Since the 1960s, Columbia has designated areas on campus for student protest. This is the compromise they made way back then to ensure that classes wouldn't be disrupted, but also students' First Amendment rights wouldn't be disrupted. All those accommodations changed the day after the president of Columbia returned from her congressional hearing. She immediately ordered the suspension of 108 students who were gathered in the liberated zone, and hundreds of NYPD police officers descended upon them to arrest them for trespassing. Students were given just 15 minutes to retrieve anything they wanted from their residence halls with an escort. Also in 1968, a pamphlet was written called Who Rules Columbia, and it has been the North Star for how to handle protest on campus. At that time, they declared that Columbia was a capitalist institution, not a school of learning, and that these liberated zones would be places to turn people out for the system and train them to be effective agents against corporate power. This is an ongoing story. Please follow the Columbia University students where you can.
Listen, we cannot have our future leaders of America out here trying to buck the status quo. No, what's the point of sending y'all to college? We don't want y'all to go there and learn. We want y'all to go in there and keep the machine running as is, says the leaders of Columbia University, says the leaders on Capitol Hill, says NYPD, says Joe Biden, says all of the messaging that these kids are getting indicates that what they are doing is wrong, which is why it is utmostly important that we continue to send solidarity to these kids who are absolutely risking lots out here. You know what I mean? Yeah, I would think that most students, or some students at least, who go to Columbia might have it okay. You know what I mean? Columbia is not cheap. What is it? It's something ridiculous. If I said $50K a semester, that may not be that far off, right? So I know everybody is not comfortably at Columbia, but some definitely are. But regardless, risking reputation, risking their freedom for participating in these protests, because their president has said that she will sick the NYPD on them ASAP, not even think nothing about it. And I'm thinking about, historically the student movement, thinking about the actions and bravery of SNCC and students that organized in those sit-ins in North Carolina, thinking about, like I mentioned, Kent State earlier, thinking about the students at Howard University in the late 60s. Did you guys know? You guys may have already known this, but when students in the late 60s at HU was getting rowdy on campus and basically rebelling against the administration who had them there to train them up as the new, Negro intelligentsia, why are y'all radical and shit? Don't y'all want jobs? said the administration to the radical students. So the legend is, and I believe this is true, that the Howard students broke in. School of Film, School of Theater, whatever the fuck. They stole the Oscar won by Hattie McDaniel and Gone with the Wind. Y'all know for decades, Hattie McDaniel was the lone Black person to have ever won an Oscar for her role as a mammy in Gone with the Wind. Gone with the Wind, right? And she donated that Oscar to Howard University, but in the late 60s, the students broke in, grabbed the Oscar, and it's speculated that they threw it in the river. It might be at the bottom of the Potomac, but it was a sign. It was a sign of resistance against the bouginess that was being imparted upon those students at that time. And trust me, a rejection of genocide it is not a rejection so much of well, maybe it is a rejection of bourgeoisie interest, but it's a rejection of inhumanity. And knowing that in your time, in the time that you are living right now, in the time that you are drawing breath, right? What do you say and do in this very moment when you see that your state, whether or not you are a willing participant in the state or no, you know what I'm saying? None of us chose to be American. We are American by chance, not by choice, right? But here we are in the belly of the beast. So when we see that our or the state is either enabling or very much an active participant in the genocide of thousands of people, with hundreds of thousands maimed and left disabled by this attack by Israel, if we say nothing, like, please, like, none of that, isn't that what people always say? Well, if I was around in the 60s in the civil rights movement, I'd have been punching white police in the face. You know what I'm saying? If I was around during segregation, I'd have been stomping white boys in the teeth. Right. Okay. Whatever you say. So, but now it's kind of one of those times, right? And whether or not you can actually get out there and be as radical as these kids from Colombia are being, honestly, just whether or not you stand on the correct side of this issue is going to be integral and pivotal. And the kind of support that we at least send these young folks with our voices at minimum is going to be key. And I want to shout out to Dr. Cornel West. They had the clips of Cornel West out there standing in solidarity with the students, which is good. I love to see that. Dr. West, I might write you in. you might still get a chance to get read in here, Dr. West. Keep doing that radical shit like that. So please support all of the students, young people, and not just at the collegiate level. If you know high school students, middle school students, students that are taking an interest in this issue and are willing to organize, and even in the forms of student-led walkouts of classes. I think that is amazing and brilliant and wonderfully conscious and aware of these students to even want to do something. So try to support these kids, support them in their actions, support them with solidarity, support them with encouraging words, and do your best to at least educate them and their parents about, what is at the crux of this issue, the crux of this imperialist issue, and how this is white supremacy and it is settler colonialism. And if they don't understand those things, immediately liken it to the settler colonialism of these United States of America. Every Black person understands the Europeans came over here and killed native nations. Like, it's the same shit. It's the same shit. The Palestinians are the indigenous people of that land. The people who call themselves Israelis now came from Europe. I cram to understand, even though I know there is an answer. I should not wonder in ignorance, but it's like, why didn't the survivors and the descendants of the survivors of the Holocaust, why didn't y'all just go back to Germany? Germany took y'all shit. Poland took y'all shit. Hungary took y'all shit. Nazi, you know what I'm saying? All these other places took y'all shit. Why y'all didn't want to go home? I guess not. Well, shit. So I mean, they figured Palestine had better weather. So they said, well, fuck it. No, there's nobody even living here. Spoken like actual colonizers. There's nobody here except these brown people. We can get rid of them. They ain't no problem. That's colonizer energy, baby, all day. And please tell Black folks this. Tell them that.